He saw his reflection and fell in love with it. Everyone thinks this is a story about vanity. It isn't. The original myth is about something far stranger and far more tragic. In the oldest version of this myth, Narcissus doesn't even know it's his own reflection. He thinks he's found someone else, someone he can never reach. Narcissus was born to a river god and a water nymph. When his mother asked a prophet if her son would live a long life, the answer was unsettling: yes, as long as he never knows himself. Narcissus grew into someone of extraordinary beauty. Everyone who saw him wanted him, gods, nymphs, mortals alike. But Narcissus rejected all of them. Every advance, every declaration of love turned away coldly. He felt nothing for any of them. Older readings of this myth suggest Narcissus wasn't arrogant. He was incapable of connection. He had never seen himself. He had no internal mirror. He didn't know what he was, so he couldn't recognize himself in anyone else. Echo was a mountain nymph with a gift and a curse. She had the most beautiful voice in the world. But Hera had punished her, so she could only repeat the last words spoken to her. Nothing original, only reflections of others' speech. Hera had cursed Echo because Echo kept Zeus distracted with conversation while his affairs continued. When Hera discovered it, she stripped Echo of original speech. Another woman punished for a god's behavior. One day, Echo saw Narcissus hunting in the forest. She fell immediately, completely in love. She followed him through the trees, watching, unable to speak first, waiting for him to say something she could answer. Narcissus called out, "Is anyone there?" Echo repeated, "Anyone there?" He called, "Come here." She repeated, "Come here," and rushed toward him. He recoiled. He rejected her. She fled into the mountains, heartbroken. Echo hid in the mountains and pined. She stopped eating. She stopped sleeping. Gradually, her body faded away until only her voice remained. That voice is still there. In every cave, every canyon, every hollow place that sends your words back to you. But Echo wasn't the only one Narcissus had rejected and broken. Many had suffered for his coldness. And Nemesis, the goddess of retribution, was watching. Nemesis led Narcissus through his own feet, without him knowing, to a pool of perfectly still water, clear as a mirror, untouched by wind or animals or any disturbance. He knelt to drink. He saw a face in the water and stopped breathing. In the oldest version, Conan's telling, predating Ovid, Narcissus genuinely doesn't recognize himself. He has never seen his own face. He believes he's found another person, living beneath the water. He reached in. The image shattered. He waited. It returned. He reached again. It shattered again. He stopped eating. He stopped sleeping. He simply stayed at the pool, staring, reaching, waiting. Days passed. Do you see what the myth is doing? Echo could only reflect others' words back at them. She had no original voice. Now Narcissus is trapped by a reflection that can only give back what he brings to it. Two figures, each imprisoned in their own version of the same trap. In Ovid's version, Narcissus eventually understands. He looks at the reflection and realizes the warmth he sees there, the love looking back at him, is his own. He loves himself, and he cannot have himself. To have what he loves, he must reach into the water and destroy the image. To preserve the image, he must never touch it. He can look, but not hold. Love, but never reach. It's a perfect trap, like Echo before him. He stopped eating. He stopped sleeping. He faded. The most beautiful person in the world, becoming less of himself every day. His last words in Ovid's account are addressed to the reflection. Alas, a boy beloved in vain. He was grieving someone who wasn't there, and also someone who was only ever him. He died at the pool, The water stilled. The reflection vanished. The narcissus flower always grows near water. It always bows its head downward. Some say it's still looking at its reflection. The myth never fully ended. In some versions, Narcissus descends to the underworld and crosses the river Styx. And there, even in death, he is found leaning over the water, still looking at his reflection. Narcissus is used today to mean vanity, self-obsession, the selfie generation. But the Greeks didn't intend this. The myth isn't a warning against liking how you look. It's far more specific and far more strange than that. The pool is self-knowledge. The Greek injunction, know thyself, carved into the temple of Apollo at Delphi, was the defining moral challenge of their civilization. Narcissus fails it completely. He looks at himself endlessly and still cannot understand what he sees. Remember the prophecy at his birth. He will live long as he never knows himself. When he finally recognizes his own reflection, he dies. The moment of self-knowledge is the moment of destruction. The Greeks found that terrifying. Narcissus couldn't love others because he had no self to love from. And when he found a self to love, it was unreachable. The myth is about the person who has never developed an interior life, and what happens when they finally encounter one. Echo and Narcissus are a perfect tragic pair. Echo has no original voice, only reflections of others. Narcissus has no capacity for others, only reflection of himself. Two people, each missing the one thing that would let them connect. They found each other. Of course, they couldn't work. In 1898, the psychiatrist Havelock Ellis named a psychological condition after this myth, narcissism. Freud developed it further. Today, narcissistic personality disorder is a recognized diagnosis, defined not as excessive self-love, but as a fragile sense of self that requires constant external validation. Exactly what the myth described. Crucially, the myth doesn't present Narcissus as evil. He's not cruel for pleasure. He simply cannot do what others do. The Greeks weren't condemning him. They were explaining something about how certain kinds of damage look from the outside. Oscar Wilde wrote a short story about it, with a twist. After Narcissus dies, the pool weeps. The gods ask, "Are you weeping for Narcissus?" The pool says, "I weep because in his eyes, I could see my own reflection." Even the pool was narcissistic. Today we talk about narcissism constantly. Social media, influencers, selfie culture. But most of what we call narcissism is just people sharing themselves. The myth describes something more specific, the inability to experience others as real. Here is the uncomfortable question the myth leaves you with. How much of what you think is love for another person is actually love for the version of them that reflects something back to you? Narcissus isn't a monster. He's an extreme version of something very ordinary. The Greeks gave us a flower as the resolution. Not punishment, not redemption, transformation. Something beautiful grew where he died, as if the myth itself couldn't bear to leave it only as tragedy. And Echo, her voice is still in every mountain, every canyon, every hollow place. She outlasted everyone. The woman with no original voice turned out to be the most enduring one. 3,000 years later, the myth of Narcissus is still asking the same question it always was. Do you know yourself? Not your appearance, not your reputation. Yourself. Your capacity to see others as separate, real, different from you. That is the hardest thing the Greeks thought a human could do. The word Narcissus, his name, became the name of a flower in every European language. Daffodil in English, Narcissa in German, Narcisse in French. One boy who couldn't look away from a pool, named in every language, forever. The next time you look in a mirror, really look. Ask yourself what you're actually seeing. Your appearance? Or a story about yourself that you've been telling so long you've forgotten it's a story? That's the pool. That's always been the pool. The pool at the end of the myth is still. The flower nods, the voice echoes. 3,000 years, still asking. The next myth on this channel is about a man who walked into the underworld for love and almost made it back out. Every myth on this channel is the real version. Help us.